People think and say what they see and hear. 90% of what you hear and see is filtered through 300 media executives representing 6 MSM, that's mainstream media companies. Welcome to the Daily Live Omission, where you see and hear what the MSM isn't going to tell you. Tonight, we're going to report on the opening salvo and elect a new Congress legal fight with Facebook. Moving on, we'll examine the Hillary Clinton FBI Director James Comey controversy and email scandal. And I'll also explain exactly what it was that Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch talked about in their desert tarmac rendezvous. We'll close out this report with an examination of Donald Trump's ownership of Resorts International, its chain of title, and its controversial history. First on the list is the startling civil rights case growing between elected new Congress and the illegal refusal of Facebook/web.com to contract with EANC, its elected new Congress, with an ad campaign that is wholly available to everyone through the general public for personal, legal, and business purposes. The Facebook/web illegal process began as soon as they took my money, and as the interviewer I was handed to kept asking probing questions until I mentioned elected new Congress was working to peacefully, legally, and constitutionally change our government. Oh, with that, the walls went up very fast, and I was sent an email from Mr. Jonathan Borg. That's Borg, as in Star Trek, as in Bernie Madoff. Hey, you can't make this up. Anyway, from the executive office of Web.com, Mr. Borg told me that Facebook Web would not work with elected new Congress. He then attached a Facebook Web AUP, that's acceptable use policy, which I then perused. Unable to find the section that elected new Congress violated, I asked him to point it out to me as the document is only 2 pages. He refused because there was no violation of the Facebook Web AUP. We didn't break it. Despite the fact that elected new Congress is a registered super PAC with the Federal Election Commission and the First Amendment has not yet been repealed, Borg of Web.com refused any further contact. This confirms a pattern of Facebook censoring more conservative movements in its opposition to our United States Constitution and our First Amendment. Facebook was recently accused of not following through on sold advertisements to right-leaning political groups, with Zuckerberg having to come out and swear it never happened. Well, apparently it did. So having been caught, Zuckerberg had to come up with another way of denying First Amendment rights to all Americans. And this is how it's done. They simply deny service. That's how it is. That's how the elites strike back. It's no longer conspiracy. It is a fact. So it appears elected new Congress is going to be the first civil rights lawsuit to be filed against Facebook/web. It is all too obvious that Facebook must be broken up, much in the same way that AT&T was broken up almost a century ago. You'll want to stay tuned to the Daily Live Omission. I'm sure we'll do our best to keep America updated and informed. We'll be reporting on that later, I assure you. Welcome to the Banana Republic of America. We start with Hillary Clinton's FBI get-out-of-jail-free card. FBI Director James Comey earlier this week reported the results of the FBI's very narrow investigation of Hillary Clinton's abuse of national security information. He then shocked the world when he announced he would not recommend prosecution over her gross neglect and mistreatment of information important to the security of the United States of America. In doing so, however, Comey admitted Clinton was guilty of crossing the line of an act of Congress, as clearly defined in Section 793 of 18 U.S. Criminal Code, as a felony criminal act. A review of that code is gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information. I quote, whoever being entrusted with or having lawful possession or control of any document, writing, code book, signal book, sketch, photograph, photographic, negative, blueprint, plan, map, model, instrument, compliance note, or information relating to the national defense, through gross negligence, permits the same to be removed from its proper place of custody or delivered to anyone in violation of this trust or to be lost, stolen, abstracted, or destroyed shall be fined at not more than $10,000, nor imprisoned at not more than 10 years, or both. Let's enumerate the lies that Hillary Clinton has repeated that the FBI investigation discovered. 1. I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. We now know that more than 2,000 emails contained information considered classified and 22 emails classified as top secret, the highest tier of classification, with Comey admitting there was classified material emailed before the House Oversight Committee last week. Clinton number 2 was allowed, but it was not a good choice. Both the State Department's Inspector General and the FBI disagree on that claim. 3. I provided the department with all of my work-related emails, all that I had. Hillary claimed that all of her work-related messages were counted within the roughly 30,000 messages given to the State Department in 2014. Another batch of similar size was purely personal, she said, and those messages destroyed. However, the FBI managed to recover some of those deleted emails through inboxes of her colleagues and from electronic breadcrumbs on decommissioning servers that Clinton used. According to Comey, thousands of those allegedly personal emails pertain to her work at the State Department, with a number of them containing classified information. Again, Hillary says, I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of two. But in fact, Clinton used multiple devices throughout her 4 years as the nation's top diplomat, according to the head of the FBI chief. The FBI has the server that was used during the tenure of my State Department service. Well, the common understanding of Clinton's setup is that she used a single server throughout all 4 years. However, the FBI said that she used several different machines, which were taken offline as they became outdated and replaced. Hillary says there were no security breaches. And while it is still unclear precisely what security mechanisms Clinton used to protect her servers from hackers, it is a given that Julia Sang is publishing alleged destroyed personal emails that aren't so personal. Indicates that a lot of people were able to hack Clinton's servers. Why not? Everyone from Colin Powell on down has been hacked, including Sidney Blumenfeld, Hillary's personal and private intelligence and political advisor. The truth is that Hillary Clinton's servers were hacked, and in all likelihood, quite often. But the biggest lie is one which Hillary not only repeated constantly before the FBI report, but more disturbingly repeated afterwards. There was nothing marked classified in my emails, either sent or received. What do you say? All 24-karat lies. And that's serious. I mean, these are putting America at risk. But apparently not to James Comey. Instead, he declared the case null and void, setting himself up to be the investigator, prosecutor, judge, and jury in an incredible display of administrative arrogance, usually reserved for a used car salesman. But being from the Chief Justice Enforcement Officer of the United States Justice Department and with the approval of his superiors, Loretta Lynch and Barry Obama, by this raw act of corruption, Comey has declared the rule of law dead in America, proving that while all Americans are equal, some are more equal than others. Further, it is clear there is no investigation into Hillary using her private email servers to cut deals by selling the powers of the United States while she was Secretary of State in order to enrich the Clinton Foundation. And there was no investigation whether Hillary lied to the FBI under oath, which she did, as Comey admitted to Congress on July 7, 2016. This brings up questions about the integrity of James Comey. Now let's take a look at where this reputation of a man of integrity comes from and the reality. His reputation for integrity stems solely from standing up to Alberto Gonzales, a chief legal assassin for the Bush administration and an admittedly very unsavory character. At least this is what we are allowed to see and hear. But if you really want to know the truth, Well, that's why you tune in to the daily lie of omission, isn't it? Because from there, Kami's reputation goes downhill. It goes downhill fast. Let's start by taking a look at what was investigated. Well, not much. Instead, because not much was investigated, let's take a look at Kami's peers in law enforcement and cybersecurity and see what they have to say about James Kami's unprecedented actions. And casting all dispersions aside, we quote former FBI Director Chris Swecker said Kami should have brought charges against Clinton. Elaborating, he seemed to be building a case for that, and he laid out what I thought were the elements under the gross negligence aspect of it. So I was very surprised at the end when he said there was a recommendation of no prosecution, and also given the fact-based nature of this and the statement that no reasonable prosecutor could entertain prosecution. I don't think that's the standard. There's one from Andrew McCarthy, former assistant U.S. attorney who convicted Omar Rahman for the 1993 World Trade Building bombing. He said, in essence, in order to give Mrs. Clinton a pass, the FBI rewrote the statute, inserting an intent element that Congress did not require. And here's from Shannon Coffin, a senior lawyer for the Department of Injustice, writes, Kami simply ignored or rewrote the plain language of Section 793 of the 18 U.S. Commercial Code, or Criminal Code, which does not require any showing of criminal intent. There's a reason that Congress did not require a showing of intent in this provision of the Espionage Act, to protect against even inadvertent disclosure or risk of disclosure of protected information where the perpetrator demonstrated gross disregard for the national security of the United States of America. How Kami could conclude that no reasonable prosecutor could make this case is inexplicable in light of his own words. And we hear from NSA whistleblower Kirk Wiebe told Washington's blog today, I felt that the flame of equal justice for all in the U.S. died today. Well, not exactly a man of integrity, is it? That the investigation was narrow. This is one of the first things that stands out in Kami's confession, that he limited the investigation to determine if national security laws had been violated, taking no care to investigate the sale of powers of the Office of the Secretary of State for bribes paid to the Clinton Foundation. It's unconscionable when it is clear that many of the donations to the Clinton Foundation were connected to the sale of U.S. weapons to countries of questionable allegiance to America, as well as favors to Wall Street and too-big-to-fail banksters, every one of whom all paid off to the Clinton Foundation. The sale of America for the aggrandizement of the Clintons is unparalleled in the annals of history and beyond belief. Yet Kami's FBI never looked into these allegations. Are these not high crimes? And they certainly would have helped fill in gaps in the alleged personal emails Hillary destroyed. Yet another criminal act. Yet Kami says she is not guilty. Is this the act of a man of integrity? Although we did not find clear evidence that Secretary Clinton or her colleagues intended to violate laws governing the handling of classified information, Kami said there is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information, which, according to the federal statutes, should be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. While Kami admitted Hillary is guilty of 18 U.S. Code Section 793, he then put in his recommendation that she should not be prosecuted, taking Loretta Lynch and both Bill and Hillary Clinton off the hook for bribery and just breaking federal laws on national security issues that protect each and every America. Makes you sleep well at night, doesn't it? Yeah, it's that old saying, yes, those are my pants, and yes, that's my wallet, but I wasn't there, I didn't do anything, you can't prove nothing, and you can't do anything to me. Beyond both imagination and surreal, Comey not only convicted Clinton by his own words, but by purposely conducting such a narrow investigation. Comey himself, by his own admission, has admitted to violating 18 U.S. Code, Section 1512, tampering with a witness, victim, or an informant. Whoever corruptly alters, destroys, mutilates, or conceals a record, document, or other object, or attempts to do so with the intent of impairing the object's integrity or availability for use in an official proceeding, or otherwise obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding, or attempts to do so, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years. Also, Code Section 1519, Code Section 2071, and Code Section 641, all of which cover destruction and alteration and falsification of records in federal investigation, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally, and public money, property, or records. Whoever embezzles, steals, purloins, or knowing conveys to his use, or the use of another, or without authority sells, conveys, or disposes of any record, voucher, money, or thing of value of the United States, like security, or of any department or agency thereof, or any property made or being made under contract with the United States, or any department or agency thereof, like arms sales, shall be fined not more than $10,000 or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. So we start adding these things up and we start coming up with 50, 60 years, 80% of which must be served when you're talking about federal crimes. Everybody's off the hook. And in doing so, Comey put himself on the hook. Is this the act of a man of integrity? Oh. You need proof. And afterwards, Comey justified his ruling with Congress by saying that General Petraeus' conviction was far worse than Hillary's, and further that there were no recent convictions for the same acts as Hillary's, which is so much further from the truth that it becomes an outright lie. Are these the acts of a man of integrity, of the director of the FBI? I think not. Need proof? Meet Brian Mishimura, FBI caught and convicted last year for doing what Hillary did, but without the damage to America's national security and on a much, much, much reduced scale. In fact, there was no issuance, there was no exposure of whatever documents and photographs Nishimura had. But let's hear from a few people that have spent their lives in law enforcement and cybersecurity. Let's take a look at Bill Binney, a legend in cybersecurity and a 26-year NSA manager who oversaw 6,000 technicians before his security clearance was revoked after he blew the whistle on NSA spying of Americans. Binney claims Clinton did far more damage than Petraeus, Snowden, and Julian Assange combined, enumerating her crimes against America as follows. A compromise of this kind of cryptology has a number of impacts on the ability of NSA to produce accurate intelligence on foreign targets of interest. 1. This lets the readers of foreign countries know that their communications have been compromised. 2. This compromises the fact that a particular type of encryption is readable. 3. This lets our potential adversaries know our technological capabilities in attacking encryption. 4. If other countries like Russia or China or any others know the encryption system involved, then they too will look at it for any weakness or flaws that would allow reading the system. 5. It alerts adversaries to look into their systems for structural errors in encryption design. 6. This presents the country to counter-use their system to feed false information into the NSA intelligence system, which 7, for NSA, this means that they have to find other ways to validate any intelligence they get from this encryption to ensure the validity of the information they get. So you can see it's cause and effect. And by Hillary's allowing this information out there and getting hacked, everybody gets to look and see what the United States is doing, and they can extrapolate how to get around, how to avoid, how to use the encryption services and the spying techniques employed by the NSA to protect the United States. Not that the NSA protects the United States. It's more they spend too much time spying on Americans. They need to spy on. It makes it much more difficult. They're supposed to be spying on other countries, and Hillary just took that and tossed it out the window. It's we know Hillary hasn't got any integrity, but they keep saying James Comey does, but I don't think so. There's very far-reaching, and systemically damaging actions to all national security. And what happened to James Comey's integrity? This is a fair question, and the only way to answer it is to take a look at Jim Comey's actual performance as the head of the FBI. Let's just an example. Let's take a look at the Orlando shootings and some of its lesser-known ramifications. Claims of the FBI. While people inside the nightclub testified that someone held the door shut, trapping a number of victims inside the shooting range, according to the FBI, Omar Mateen worked alone. People testified there was more than one shooter, but not to the FBI. They still say one shooter. No help. It's amazing that the FBI spent over a year counting Mateen's teeth with a proctoscope, but found nothing. Totally vetted. But the FBI never talked to his first wife, who said he beat her, which would have disqualified from owning a gun in the first place. There's no timeline from the FBI still today, and the case is essentially closed. The FBI found Mateen's second wife, who said she thought he was gay and that she took him on a dry run of the bar. But then this alleged second wife, who came out of nowhere, then disappears, and the FBI says they have no idea where she went and can't find her. Are you kidding me? Did she ever really exist? The FBI really can't find someone that they found in the first place that no one knew existed? Not unless they never existed in the first place, and they're supposed to disappear. Despite reports of a named male friend with benefits of Mateen, the FBI says no proof that Mateen was gay. The FBI did not investigate any possible connections between the shooter's father and the White House members of Congress. As the senior, Mateen is a presidential candidate for the nation of Afghanistan, which America occupies today, and is well known around the nation's capital, and has pictures taken of him outside classified hearing rooms with congressmen, and has allegedly even met the president. Now, Mateen worked for G4S, the largest private security contractor to the United States government, and nobody knew anything about this guy. It stretches belief, and when we look at it further, are we to assume that James Comey and the FBI are totally inept? And I find it unbelievable. Further, Mateen was also known to both local police departments as well as the FBI, and he therefore would have been fairly well known to government covert ops. In fact, we hear from the Vero Beach Press Journal that reported Sheriff Ken Mascara of Florida's St. Lucie County reported Mateen threatened a courthouse deputy 2013 by claiming he could order Al-Qaeda operatives to kill his family, and that the FBI then dispatched an informant to lure Omar into some kind of act, but Omar did not bite. Yet 2 weeks before the shooting, it was reported by people that worked with Mateen that he was experiencing mental and schizophrenic episodes and was asking and researching about psychological drugs. As the Mateen case begins to personify the symptoms of a CIA classic MK Ultra Manchurian candidate type of murderer. That's stretching things, I understand that. But nothing makes sense here. Nothing adds up. It's a fact, in fact, that since 9/11, the FBI has relied heavily on informants to trap scores of young, often mentally troubled Muslim men. Avi Stahl of Alternet's Greystone Project reported an FBI sting of a mentally disturbed convert to Islam named James Medina. And after arranging for him to bomb a South Florida synagogue and pledge allegiance to ISIS, they arrested him before anything happened, with Medina protesting through his attorney that he was mentally ill. In fact, there have been so many FBI sting operations that Trevor Aronson wrote a book about them called The Terror Factory inside the FBI's manufactured war on terror, leaving Aronson wondering, is it possible that the FBI is creating the very enemy we fear? What is so disturbing is the highest law enforcement agency in America is so preoccupied with creating sting operations for terrorists that they have yet to prevent a single real attack from happening, despite having prior knowledge of and often vetting the alleged shooters of a number of mass murders. San Bernardino comes to mind. Case in point, Omar Mateen was one of their recruits, or a covert op recruit that got out of hand and slipped through their fingers. Is that possible? Well, why not? This explains the real James Comey, a man immersed in the corruption and credible minds he is supposed to be arresting and convicting. But then, this is just part of being a member of the nation's ruling elite. So how do we leave it on July 6, 2016? Well, El Presidente Obama flew Hillary down to South Carolina in Air Force One to deny everything and act as if nothing has ever occurred. But Paul Ryan calls for Hillary not to be briefed on security matters during the remainder of the campaign. For once, I agree with Paul Ryan. Congressman Issa from California calls for the government to be shut down until Clinton's crimes are fully vetted. The Republicans have called for shutting down the government on a number of occasions. This is the first one that's made sense.
Now we turn to the real reason Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch met on a lonely tarmac in the desert. It's really quite obvious. Bill was there to outline the conditions under which Hillary would testify to the FBI. The first demand was that she not be sworn in to tell the truth. Not that she has that ability, but he wanted to make it official. The second is there would be no stenographer or recording of the event, and the final demand was that she be surrounded by a team of lawyers. Bill received every demand and Hillary met with the FBI. It was a whitewash. Actually, it was a federal RICO Act violation that stands for Racketeering, Influence, and Criminal Organizations, an act of Congress passed to break up criminal operations and organizations such as the one surrounding Hillary Clinton. Defendants are Bill and Hillary Clinton, Loretta Lynch, James Comey, a possible accomplice, may well be Barack Obama. It demands an independent prosecutor, and if it costs $20 million or more to get to the truth, it will all be worth every single dime, because it is impossible to place a price on the security of our United States of America.
Personally, I don't think this is going to go away. In fact, I think when America looks back upon what event really kicked off the rebellion of the American people against the government, I believe it will be the clear dissolution of any remnant of justice from the elite's crimes against America and the Comey, Obama, Lynch, Hillary Clinton email scandal that will stand out in people's minds. Yet, in reality, the revolution will have already predated that event, because we are in the first stage of a revolution. Do you think all the shooting and violence is bad now? When you get to stage 3, it will have exponentially expanded on a scale of hundreds. People don't understand this, but that day is coming. It's already started. And you're just seeing the birth pangs of revolution in America, and not only America, the world. But let's shift away from Hillary and let's take a look at Donald Trump, the other major candidate, and some of his problems with the ruling elite. We go back to 1987 when Donald Trump purchased his first casino interest when he acquired 93% of the shares of Resorts International. Resorts International has a sordid history which began in the early 1950s when it evolved from a CIA and Mossad front company which had been established for the purpose of money laundering the profits from drug trafficking, gambling, and other illegal activities. That's the CIA and Mossad. You don't think that they were doing that in the 50s and they're still doing it today, do you? Or other government rogue ops?
What do you think, America? Let's get on to the story. In October 30th, 1978, the Spotlight newspaper reported that the principal investors of Resorts International were Meyer Lansky. Is that a familiar name to anyone? He was the Jewish finance arm of organized crime during the post-war era. Also, Tibor Rosenbaum, William Mellon Hitchcock, David Rockefeller, and one Baron Edmund de Rothschild. And Michael Piper, in his book, The New Jerusalem, Zionist Power in America, has done an excellent job of describing the relationship between Donald Trump and Resorts International. The following excerpt sums up the relationship. In 1987, upon the death of longtime CIA frontman James Crosby, the nominal head of Resorts International, up-and-coming New York real estate tycoon Donald Trump stepped into the picture and bought Crosby's interest in the gambling empire. After quickly expanding the reach of Resorts International Atlantic City in the final years of the 1980s, Donald Trump found himself in financial trouble as the real estate market in New York tanked. The three casinos in Atlantic City, like other Trump assets, were under the threat from lenders. As detailed in a Bloomberg article dated March 22, 1992, it was only with the assistance and assurance of Wilbur L. Ross, Jr., Senior Managing Director of Rothschild, Inc., that Trump was allowed to keep the casinos and rebuild his threatened empire. So a connection between the Baron Edmund de Rothschild, being one of the original principal investors of Resorts International, and Rothschild, Inc., allowing Donald Trump to retain ownership over the Atlantic City casinos, which saved him from bankruptcy. And as reported in a Bloomberg article again, dated March 9th, 2016, Wilbur Ross came out strong for Donald Trump for president. Here's a chart showing the percent of Americans who trust the government. What happens when it gets to zero, right? Well, didn't I say we're in a revolution? First stage? We'll go over what a revolution is, or you can read it in the book, but we're here. Yeah, now I know Trump says he used to be an elitist, but no longer. And he says the elites he was formerly a part of are ripping off America. And that's a fact. But all my research indicates that once you're in with the elites, the only way out is feet first. I'm not saying Donald Trump is going to be killed, that he is an elitist in disguise, or he's not the real deal. But I am saying there's no way we Americans can put all our eggs in one basket. And the only true option, the only guarantee we Americans have to restore America and make it great again is to take back our Congress. That is what liberty legislation is all about. That is what elected new Congress is all about. It's the only fail-safe left to all Americans. It's liberty legislation. If we all stand fast to liberty legislation, which you can view on scienceofliberty.us, and we use it as the litmus test to determine who we vote for and who we do not, we will elect a new Congress that restores America to being a state of liberty where the people rule over their government. When the people rule over their government is the definition of a state of liberty. And as Washington once wrote to James Madison, liberty, once taken root, is a plant of rapid growth. With liberty comes the means to make America great again. It's our only answer. It's our only hope. This concludes this edition of the Daily Live Emission. We try to get one more episode in on Washington, D.C.'s neocon war or the crumbling economy before we depart for Cleveland and Philadelphia for the Republican and Democratic conventions. We'll be try to be broadcasting daily, and our objective is to interview those who the mainstream media does not interview. We're going to bring you the Daily Live Emission. We're going to be interviewing protesters, but more importantly, we are going to interview the delegates at their hotels, and judging from past incidents, America is going to get their eyes opened through the Daily Live Emission, because that's where the real story is. That's where it's really happening. That's where you find out what is really going on at the conventions, because what you hear on mainstream media isn't anywhere close to the truth. It leaves all the truth out. If you are interested in knowing more, I ask you to click on electanewcongress.com. And right now, because we're still trying to get electanewcongress.com updated, take a look at www.scienceofliberty.com. Read about liberty legislation. Here you can read for free the first 42 pages of The Science of Liberty, American Reformation, as well as examine its extensive table of contents. Would you like to share the daily lie of omission and help spread the word about liberty? Everything runs on money, but I think you should get something for your hard-earned dollars when you donate. If you are so kind and inclined, I'd ask you to click on www.scienceofliberty.us and purchase The Science of Liberty, American Reformation, and or New American Revolution, The Constitutional Overthrow of the United States Government. Both are serious studies into the science of liberty in our age of revolution, along with the amazing history of what we were never taught in school. Part of your purchase price will go towards financing Elect a New Congress, a registered super PAC, and Liberty Legislation's campaign to restore liberty to America. Thanks for listening, and God bless. I'm your host, William W. Fawell. Surf's up, America!